Okay, welcome to the Finance and Budget Workshop for May 12th. I guess, Mike, we'll just turn it over to you and let you begin. We are going to work on our mid-year budget, too, and go over that because we have a well, not an ordinance, but a whatchamacallit. Resolution for that this evening, so take it away.
Okay. The first thing that we can look at is I want to go over our sales tax. I believe y'all have that in your packet. It's the normal sales tax report that we go over. The sales tax that we received in August of 2022 for the month of June 2022 was $315,253.66. This was down just a little bit over what we received in August of 2021, about 1.9%. But for the year, we're still up 10.61% over the same period as last year. On our financial statements, we'll go ahead and go over them, and then we can go over our budget adjustments of what we're looking at adjusting. The financial results that you have are through July 31st of 2022. This completes 58.08% of our fiscal year of 2022. Our total revenue through July 31st, which is the bottom line on the front sheet there, the total revenue through July 31st of 2022 is $7,326,764. That's about 60.10% of our budget, so we're doing good there. We're running a little bit ahead of budget on our revenues. Our expenditures through July 31st, 2022 is $6,616,568, which is 57.5% of our budget, or 57.57% of our budget. So we're a little bit ahead of our budget on revenue, and we're a little bit under budget on our expenses. So our total positive net cash flow is $710,195.73. A couple of the fiscal things that we look at there in this meeting is on our fuel budget. We should be at 58.08%. Our police are at 57.43. Our fire is at 40.05. Our transit is a little bit high at 70.32, but that'll be adjustment that we'll look at in our budget adjustments. One of the other things that, Terry, you had asked some questions about on the last meeting that we had, and I'd like to pass this out to y'all, and I apologize for it being so late.
Thank you, sir.
Could you swing your mic a little closer to you? Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
What this is this is some rough numbers on, we had talked about our billing for our EMS. And the first chart there, at the top of the chart, this is from January 2022 through July of 2022. The top line is the amount that was billed that month for EMS. The credits are what were adjusted by insurance. They were insurance adjustments that they received. Then the payments are what they actually received for that month. And then the balance due is how much is still left out of what was billed for that month. It kind of gives you the percentages down there of how much is the credit adjustments, how much we're collecting out of what's billed, and kind of what the balance due percentages are for those months.
So the credits, that's nothing we receive.
No, that's not payments or anything. That is where...
That's discount because of the insurance?
Yes, that's where the insurance company has made
Okay.
in and adjusted the bill. And then the payments are what we actually received in money, some form of money. And then down at the bottom, this is their aging summary that they produced for us at the end of the month. We had $53,000 that was considered current, which was 8%. And then you can kind of see the percentages, they go down, 31 to 60 days, 61 to 90. And then when you get over 180 days, we have $519,520 that hasn't been collected. So out of our outstanding that we have, 80% of that is over 180 days.
How does that compare to last year?
I have not compared that to last year. This is just, I just did this for, we just got the numbers today for 22, so that's why I was
Okay.
able to do them for for July. So I haven't compared that over 21.
Can you check also what, can we get some kind of idea, what are our chances of getting that, any of that 800, or the 80%, the 520 grand is, when they get over 180 days, do they start writing that stuff off at a year, or do they just go on indefinitely?
Okay. Find out kind of a little bit more about what that category consists of.
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Now, it's true, we have a company that does the billing and
Right.
collecting for us, right?
Right.
I know it's a tough business.
Yes.
It's,
Sure.
yeah.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions over the current financials or sales tax or anything before we move on to the budget adjustments?
Any surprises that you see?
No, I looked through it, and anything that we see that's kind of out of line in the current budget is going to be addressed with these budget adjustments.
Right.
So there's not anything that's standing out as, scary, or, I think we're on good track with our sales tax. We seem, our revenues are coming in pretty strong. So overall, I think our picture is pretty good, and I think this new budget that we're going to put out, I've worked really hard on this budget line item by line item, trying to be as conservative as possible. I didn't want to overstate anything, so you're going to see some things in here where I may have reduced some revenue that we had predicted that come in, that may still come in, but I wanted to predict it on a conservative side so that we would be, there would be no surprises at the end of the year.
Shall we get to it?
Sure.
Everybody okay with that?
Yeah,
Move on?
absolutely.
Why not?
Okay.
What you should have is you should have a summary sheet that will kind of give you just an overview of some changes. It'll say 2020 budget summary, 2020, I'm sorry, that should have been 2022. I don't know what I was doing.
Thank you.
I'm 2 years
Kind of curious
behind.
about that.
I'm 2
Getting a
years
time
behind.
machine here?
Yeah, okay.
But you seem for paying attention, right?
Yeah, that's it. It was just a test, Bill. You passed. Okay. That kind of shows the overall department increases and decreases for each department and fund. But then the next page will be your line item budget. And what I did on it, you'll see all the line items. To make this a little bit easier, on your 2022 adjusted budget, which is the center column, all the lines that are in black, where it's black ink, nothing was done to them. There's no changes. If it's in blue, if the number's in blue, then that means we made a change. Then out to the side of it, you'll see the net effect of that change. For example, on the sales tax operating, we did raise that up just a little bit. So you can see Lonnie had originally predicted 885. I'm doing 950, so that's a change of 64,000. So that's we're increasing our revenue, so that's in black. If we have something that we're decreasing revenue, or it'll be in the red. Some of the things like and I put page numbers on them, so if you see anything that you, there's actually a page number on the bottom of them now, so if you find something you want to talk about, everybody can get to it by the
Thank
page
you.
number a lot easier.
Thank you.
Yay.
Autumn, that's just for you. On page one of the things that we'll point out is the parking revenue. We did lower that because of the problems we've been having with the meters. Parking revenue's not coming in as expected, so we did lower that revenue item a little bit. If you see an item where there was nothing originally balanced or posted in the 2022 budget and now there is, that's a line item that for some reason we have added. And if you see anything like that that you want an explanation for, just let me know and I can kind of explain why we ended up with that.
Can you go back to this summary page?
Yes, sir?
Because I think that it does abbreviate the whole packet, correct?
Yes. It does.
So we go down to the totals, and so we're looking at increasing the budget by 80,000. Is that what I'm looking at? Is that correct, or?
The overall net effect of the budget would be by $80,000. We're looking at raising our projected revenues from 12.1 to 13.7, which is a 1.5 increase. And our total expenditures, we're raising them from 11.4 to 12.9 for a 1.5 increase. So originally, we had predicted a net effect of a positive number of 694. We're now projecting 775.
Right. And that's on the last page of the big packet.
Right. All of these foot to the budget. So if you see something on the front page that doesn't look right, you can find it in the budget.
Right.
And find the number in there.
Well, I think that's great if it holds true, and all we can do is base it on what we know, and it appears that it should all fall in line in that order.
And like I said, like on revenues, we tried to be really conservative on those. What I did to balance out the end of the year was I just mirrored what we had done last year and sales tax. I didn't give us any increase for the rest of the year. If we just mirror what we did last year, this is where our revenues would come in at. So I didn't want to project, even though we're running at a 10%, I didn't want to every month to be, I wanted to be as conservative as we possibly could. So,
Again, I want to say that we have a resolution for this evening to pass. So look it over between now and then.
Yes.
So if you've got any questions, now's the best time to get them answered.
yes, ma'am.
So on page 2, public restroom repair and restoration, will that money be spent this year, that full 65?
What we did on that is the mayor had met with Neb Holtz, and they gave us a bid on what it would take to restore and repair all 3 of the bathrooms. And that's what their bid came in at. So what he asked for me to do was just to go ahead and put it into the budget. It's not approving that project, it's just making sure that we have the funds available so that whenever because that wasn't their final quote, that was their first quote that they gave us. And so he was going to go through that a little bit more, then he'll bring that to y'all and y'all will discuss it and decide what you want to do. But we wanted to just make sure that the money was there so that if we decided to do that, then the money would be there. So that's what that is for.
Hopefully, yes, if they can get it done by the end of the year, but, at least if nothing else, prior to this next year's season.
I'm curious on the
Like that.
transit fund, this is on the big sheet I'm looking at. You've got revenue up, does that mean ridership is up?
Yeah, well, some of these are prediction, or where Lonnie had kind of been really conservative in his estimates of where ridership would be at this point, and we're going over that, we're beating that, we're already there, bringing in the revenue of what he predicted that we would bring in for the entire year. So some of these bumps in revenue are to finish out the last 3 or 4 months of the year, where he was a little bit more conservative. We can now see that we can add a little bit more money to them. So some of the ridership, I believe, is up from
Yes.
what Smitty has been saying, in our department head meetings and stuff. So some of the ridership is up.
And on the other side of the coin, you're showing the expenditures down even with the gasoline increase.
Right. If you go to Fund 85, that'll be transit. It's
What-
almost at
what
the
page?
end. It'll be starting on about page 14.
Okay?
Some of his money that's coming up from his revenue, that's bringing his revenue stream up, is his reimbursements from the highway department on his federal aid.
Okay.
So we have an increase there.
It's big.
Quite a bit of increase there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then on some of his, like his salaries and wages are down a little bit. He's had a hard time getting drivers. And so some of his salaries and wages have dropped. His overtime went up because he's having to utilize some of his employees more on his overtime hours than the salary, because he's having trouble hiring people. And some of his wages are just, they're down, even though we gave raises and that kind of stuff. A lot of it, his is in wages. A big portion of it is in his operations and sales and wages, or salaries and wages under his Department 02 at the bottom of page 15.
Yeah.
What is the refunds and allowances that it basically is pulled clear out?
What line?
That is 4315, up in his revenue
Okay. Oh,
part. Do you know what that line is?
854314?
15.
Oh, I'm sorry, 15, refunds and allowances. I believe, honestly, Terry, I believe that's exactly kind of what it means, is where he's having to give refunds, where people, they book tours, paid for them, or booked the trolleys or whatever, and then they ended up not doing it. They maybe had a day pass and then got a refund, didn't use it or whatever. And I sincerely believe that's
Okay.
just exactly. We talked about that. It really should be an expenditure and not be in your revenue section. But for some reason, Lonnie set it up as a revenue. But
Okay.
you shouldn't really have a negative number in your refund and in your revenues.
Yeah,
It should be
that's-
under an expenditure. So we'll probably look at moving that
Okay.
down to an expenditure item.
Yeah, it did look kind of weird.
Yeah, it looks weird being there.
Well, I'm kind of surprised that the fuel costs in all the departments are down. Or even. I figured that we'd be clobbered with that one.
I did too.
I talked to the police chief about, they can't get a transport load because they don't have big enough tanks. And if they put big enough tanks like over at Public Works where there's room for them and the transport can come in and out, he could get some pretty good discounts. So he was going to look through that and see.
Pretty expensive to set that up, though.
Yeah, well, Magnus Oil will give them an exact price on how to do the whole thing. So they do it all the time. And It's just a matter of how long it would take to amortize that expense.
Yeah, it's pretty big with all the environmental things you gotta go through today to set
One
up
thing
bulk tanks.
I will point out too, Nick, we had talked about the police and their, they were buying that stuff that they were getting on grants. So like if you'll go back on page 4 of their line item of 01-12-5303, we increased that because it was showing them that they were way over budget. Because when they originally did the budget, we didn't know they were going to get that grant for these items. So we raised their expenditure for it, and then we put it into a revenue fund. That's where they got the tablets for the cars. So that's one of the things that we had talked about previous with the budget. You will see under a lot of the departments, there will be a new column, sale of assets. That's something we're proud of, is our gov.deals, where we sold some items on gov.deals. So occasionally you'll see a sale of asset of a revenue that we hadn't originally budgeted that's in there now that reflects those sales. So that's a project we were proud of.
Do we have anything else coming up that we would be selling on that this year?
The police department has, they have 2 automobiles. They were originally approved to be sold. They were going to go through our original selling. The day we went to list them, a trash truck slipped out of gear and ran into them and damaged them. So we had to go through the insurance claim process and everything on them. So they missed the first sale. And so now he's going to go ahead and relist them and get those sold. But we have those 2. Parks had a few items that were just some little things, but not anything major. But I don't think we have anything left huge this year left to sell.
So we do retain insurance that covers things like that? I mean, it's not
Yes. All of our vehicles are insured.
fully
So-
insured?
Yeah.
Yeah, not just liability.
Right. This was actually, it wasn't anything of our fault. It was a Carroll County trash truck.
Oh, yeah, that would have
So,
been, yeah.
yeah,
that's
so
right.
it was
That's
on
what
the-
it is.
on
It's
there.
not a city entity, yeah.
So they had to like pay for
Right.
the repairs of the cars.
Yeah,
So we went ahead and did that before we sold them, so.
right. Very good.
Yeah.
Cool.
Any questions?
Well, I just want to mention on page 6, the municipal code update was decreased by $700, but I just sent off a massive update, so that number will probably get canceled out by the end of the year. It's not much, but there's going to be a sizable payout.
A lot of these, whenever we reduce them, like in these little small numbers where I reduce them, the reason why I reduced them is maybe you had had very little charge to that so far. So I don't know, I don't remember exactly. I could go back on the other sheet and look, but like if I moved it down to 1,000, you probably only had a couple $100 that were charged so far. Because I didn't, if you had $900, I wouldn't have moved it to 1,000. I gave you money to make things throughout the end of the year on each one of these. So we can go back and look at that. I'd be happy to go back and look at that. But we didn't cut anybody to where they have no money. This allows for people to have money left to operate on for the rest of the year, even on where we reduce some of these items. Because a lot of them are projections that you don't know if we're going to actually need that account or not at the beginning of the year. So we project kind of based off of what you did last year. And then if it's not used, then we kind of, adjust a little bit of that around. But that's something we can look at.
That is,
Well, we'll visit about that because
that is a good
so it
question.
will be smoother in the years following.
Will you try and get things codified up right before you leave and all that? Or is that,
That's what was just sent off.
but there'll be more between now and then? Yes?
it takes a long time to prepare a new batch, and a new batch just was shipped off. So if there are additional ordinances passed between now and the end of the year, they won't be reflected
Okay.
in that update.
Okay.
So
I know they
on-
won't be in that date. I just didn't know if you were
Right.
trying to do another before you skipped out.
on
No,
that,
it was quite a bear to get this one done. Graduate.
Graduate, that's another.
I kind of like that skipped out.
Graduate.
on that item in particular, and so far we have spent zero through the end of July 31st.
Right, because
So,
it has
yeah.
not happened for quite a while.
Okay.
And so that's why there was no expenditure, and now there's going to be
Okay.
a sizable expenditure. And hopefully, it will be more regular.
Okay.
Okay. All right, cool.
I have a little.
Yes, ma'am.
In preparation for another one of our items on the agenda, the recycling bags.
Yes, ma'am.
So the revenue is 35 and the expenditures is 30? Am I reading that correctly?
Let me look. That's going to be.
What page is that on?
So
Yeah.
page 1 and page 2. Page 1 is the revenue, and then page 2 is the expenditure.
Recycling sale of bags is 35,000.
I know that this is, a troubling topic. So I just wanted to kind of point that out so we all can kind of see if that's correct and if I'm reading it right.
Yeah, so it,
Yep, down at the very bottom, recycling bags, 35,000. And we can look over,
Yeah, and it should be on page 2, 5741, halfway down.
yeah, so a minimum profit on bags.
Yeah, we
Right,
Yeah.
And
yeah,
that all goes to the recycling.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
don't make.
okay.
That's all I got.
Are you happy with that, Autumn?
So far,
That's just,
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I'm reading that correctly.
yes.
Yeah,
So far,
okay.
year-to-date, to 7/31, we have taken in $22,183 for recycling bags, is how much we have taken in as the revenue.
Okay.
Let me find the expenditure real quick.
If it was the other way around, it'd be trouble.
Right, yeah.
And we've spent 22,000 on them,
Okay,
so, yeah.
Kind
there's
of a
like-
break-even
yeah,
situation,
break-even
yeah.
situation, there's like really no profit margin in them.
yeah. Okay.
okay, if you want to take a break, we can do so right now.
All right.
And he's not going anywhere,
No.
so if something hits you, why, don't
Yeah,
hesitate to,
I've got 2 or 3 things on the agenda tonight, so I'm
Yeah,
here
so
for.
he's
for the rest
hanging
of
around.
it.
Oh, so you get to hang out
Y'all are going to
with
get to see
us.
me a lot tonight.
Little guy,
Spencer,
Spencer. Cool.
yeah. Is Lonnie officially gone? Officially retired?
He's officially retired.
All right.
As of it was last Friday, a week ago Friday?
Oh,
Yeah,
my
Right
gosh.
before Labor Day.
I
Friday
bet he's
before
on
Labor Day.
vacation.
Yeah. Talked to him a couple of times, and he seems to be really relaxed when I talk to him.
Nothing's going to bother him now, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's great, thank you.
All right, thank